when Trump got elected. And that night, and I lived out in Arizona. I was in Scottsdale because I was doing just NBA Countdown for ESPN ABC. And didn't want to live in LA. So I just fly in on Thursdays to Sundays from Arizona, which was the perfect setup. And I remember being in Arizona on my couch watching the results come in, and we're floored. You thought this could never happen. And then I'm on Twitter and I'm watching the highest ranking executives at ESPN at the time tweeting about Trump being elected and how sickened and disgusted they were. And I'm like, these are bosses. These are decision makers. These are trying to be journalists. And if that's what the bosses are putting out, so that's when I was like, wow, what is this?
All right, well, I'm very excited to sit down with once mainstream broadcaster, now independent broadcaster, Megyn Kelly. You see what I did there? Come on.
I'm happy to meet you. And now look how you start. Here's the problem.
Yes.
Megyn Kelly and I, as far as I know, don't look anything alike. Joe Rogan and Dana
The
White
lights are very bright on
look alike. So you failed on your attempt to get me. That's really good.
The lights are very bright. I don't see color. That's how non-racist.
Oh my God, I love you. I'm
that?
trying to go more blonde to blend the gray in. So maybe that's the Megyn.
That's what's going on there. Sage, I am so excited. I feel like we already did a show in 5 minutes just sitting here, but I'm so excited that you're here because for a million reasons. Like basically I wanted to be on ESPN. That was what my dream was way back when. I wanted to be an ESPN anchor.
I had no idea.
When I was in college in the 90s, watching Olbermann, who's now completely lost his mind, and Craig Kilborn and Dan that was what I wanted to do. I ended up doing this. It's all right. It's okay. But that you've gone from the corporate thing to the independent thing, you're now opening up about what a lot of that corporate control was. You're in the mix with my man, Bill Maher. Like there's just so much happening, and you're like in the news now too. There's a lot going on with Sage Steele. That's not a question. Just start talking.
Just go. Yes.
You got a lot cooking, right? Well, all right, let's do this.
I didn't, to your point at the end there, like I'm not trying to make news and I'm a little uncomfortable with it. It's amazing though what comes when you just begin to speak your mind. Honestly, if asked a question. So I'm not trying to make headlines, but somehow it's happening.
Right. So, all right. So actually, why don't we back up for just 1 second? Let's give everybody the kind of 1 minute bio just so they can fully catch up on you. And then we'll go to all that stuff. So where the hell did you come from? How did you get here? And then we'll go.
Well, my dream was like yours at age 11 now. I might have beaten you to it, to be a sportscaster and then specifically to be on ESPN. So it took me 11 years of TV, local, regional to get there. And honestly, the fact that I fulfilled that dream, I was there for 16 and a half years. When I walked into the SportsCenter studio, I would still pinch myself. It never got lost on me. And I literally appreciate every moment, even the stuff that hurt, even the stuff that sucked, especially towards the last few years. But I mean, from there, it was a kind of a transformation, if I look back in hindsight, of being like this pleaser. That's a disease I'm still trying to get over. Can you ever be cured from that? I hope so.
It's tough. It's definitely a tough one, especially in our business.
Especially, yes, personally, professionally, like all the things. So to let go of that. And I mean, once you get canceled a couple times, it just gets easier. And you're like, well, screw it. I'm already canceled. I might as well say this now too. But it's just crazy to think of who I was my whole life. And then beginning at ESPN to finding that voice. But it was only because when you kind of get pushed into a corner so many times, you have a decision to make. And I just got backed in that corner and had to, in my opinion, obviously I made the decision I thought was right for me to stand up and have a voice about being treated differently compared to my peers at the network because I didn't fit the narrative. Not just for me. And I have 3 teenage kids and they're watching and it was important.
Okay, so before we get into the stuff that you've been making news about, which is obviously related to all that, when you get to ESPN, you're thrilled, you got your dream gig, you're pinching yourself every day. When did you start to see that something was not quite right? Because my audience knows I don't watch pro sports anymore because I can't take the wokeness and the politics and anything else. So if you look at my YouTube search thing, I watch 90s NBA games. That's all I watch now.
Which is the best era, by the way.
Come on. You know how many times I watched?
Who were you a fan of?
Clyde the Glide was my hero.
Oh,
that was a
amazing.
Blazer ball from '92 when they were in the finals against the Bulls. Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah,
honestly, that bad boy Detroit Pistons era, and
they
I
beat my Blazers.
Pacers, Knicks, Michael Jordan. Like that's the era that I loved and fell in love with the NBA.
But when did you realize that
it was
something was not quite right there?
When Trump got elected, and that night, and I lived out in Arizona. I was in Scottsdale because I was doing just NBA Countdown for ESPN ABC, and I didn't want to live in LA, so I just fly in on Thursdays to Sundays from Arizona, which was the perfect setup. And I remember being in Arizona on my couch watching the results come in, and we were floored. You know, you thought this could never happen, and then I'm on Twitter, and I'm watching the highest ranking executives at ESPN at the time tweeting about Trump being elected and how sickened and disgusted they were. And I'm like, these are bosses. These are decision makers. These are trying to be journalists. And if that's what the bosses are putting out, so that's when I was like, wow, what is this? And then from there, you know, and I thought a lot about it lately. From there, that was the beginning of the end to me. I mean, I think it was interesting before then when Obama was president, like there was a love fest at ESPN for him. And listen, I love the fact that our country had gotten to the point that we could elect somebody who looked like me, actually very much like me, with a white mom and a black dad. It was just like, oh my gosh, I didn't vote for him, but I was glad, you know, from the evolution part of our country to get to, you know, a minority in office.
Wait, so interesting. I didn't know you didn't vote for him. So were you, so I consider you, I don't know, I hate all these stupid labels, but you seem like somewhat conservative-ish leaning to me now, let's say, or something like that. But were you always sort of more conservative in that sense?
You know, yes, but I never talked about it.
Right.
For sure.
Well, that was when it didn't matter when you were ready. Right.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, and people say, oh, your dad was in the military, which he was, career Army officer, West Point grad, and like the whole thing. So I had the best upbringing because of that. So diverse, 4 different countries we lived in by the time I was 11 years old. So I saw the world, you know. But I remember asking my parents who they voted for in 1988. I was in a high school civics class and came home and wanted to talk about it. And they're like, none of your business. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm just trying to. And they said, no, we don't want to influence you. You go do your homework. You go figure out who you want to vote for and why. It has nothing to do with us. And it's also very private. So that's how I was raised. And so I went and did my homework. And I remember going to college. I graduated from high school in 1990. I remember going to college. I went to Indiana University and, you know, paired up with roommates in the dorms. And they had, you know, all the pro-choice stickers. And I was also raised Catholic and I was not pro-choice. And, you know, listen, my opinions have gone all different directions throughout my life, especially since then. But that's when I had to dig deeper. Like, okay, this feels wrong. That issue in particular, this feels wrong to me, and why? So I came to it on my own, and I think through the years, probably got more and more conservative. But what do they say? Fiscally conservative, socially liberal. I think it's such a cop-out half the time. And because at the end of the day, like, I don't care who you vote for. I don't care who you sleep with. I don't care about any of it. Are you a good human? Yeah. Are you kind? How do you treat me? Most importantly, how do you treat others when the lights aren't on, right? Like, how are you with your staff? Like, that tells me, or you know, a wait staff at a restaurant.
I'm sorry that I was hitting that guy when you walked in here. That was
listen, I was going to keep it a secret.
I didn't realize you were here. That was wildly.
He has a smile on his face still, so you must pay him well.
Yeah, they're compensated for the beatings
quite well. So yeah, I mean, I feel like it happened naturally through my own research, and I believe your opinions are based on your experiences. And so that's what it was for me. And just, you know, patriotism, that was a big thing. When you grew up on military bases around the world, you know, when that anthem comes on, you stand at attention, you know, you shake hands a certain way, like you talk to your parents and adults and teachers a certain way. And I think through the years, I realized it all kind of falls in line with something that's a little bit more conservative.
If you're looking for more uncensored opinions from today's thought leaders, check out our media playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.